From there, how did Henry Aldrich and the Henry
God.
Aldrich say? I can tell how much you like getting typecasted, but it was an important part of your career at that time.
God, yes. I made 9 Aldrich pictures, and the contract to Paramount, I worked 61 days a year for Paramount. I got paid 40 out of 52 weeks, and very good money, by excellent money. And all I had to do was make 3 films a year for Paramount, 21-day shootings apiece, like this picture of 21 days. And you know, I knew it was the kiss of death when you finish up a series, because it sticks to you like glue, you know, for 10 or 15 years afterwards. And even today, you know, I'll get 10 or 12 letters a month instead of the normal things.
Will they be addressed to Henry Aldrich or to Jimmy Lydon?
Not sometimes Henry Aldrich, you know, and that was 60 years ago, you know. But anyway, I had the most marvelous, once again, lucky education in making film, not being in it. And as you know, I became an actor by accident, and I never felt like an actor after making about 87 features in my lifetime, and hundreds of television shows, 3 television series that never went past
1 year.
No, never went past 13 things.
Well, I have to tell you, for someone who was an accidental actor, if you want to do away with the ream of paper, go to IMDb and download all of this man's credits. He has done movies, television. His career encompasses the history of television, and in addition to that, you did the time of their lives with Cagney.
I made
Bill
4 or
Bendis.
5 A pictures, only 4 or 5. One was Life with Father with
Tell us about Life with Father with Curtiz and Elizabeth Taylor.
And I made the second $1 million film that RKO ever made, Tom Brown's School Days, and that's a story in itself. Tom Brown's School Days is a 1700s type of story about British public schools, which, as some of you know, is a very, very private school, like Eton and Harrow and that sort of thing. And it was a very mean and crucial, ugly time until Dr. Arnold came along and revolutionized English gentry and lords and ladies' children, their education. And it was the second $1 million film that RKO ever made. Now, it's a total British film, and the only British person in the world in motion pictures that should have played Tom Brown is Freddie Barthlomew. Freddie Barthlomew was English. He was a big star at MGM. He was the right age and everything. But he wasn't under contract to RKO. I was. So I got to play Tom Brown, and they sent over a guy from England to teach me a British accent for a couple of months, and that helped a lot for my New Yorkese. And we made this film in 4 months shooting, where my usual schedule was about 21 days, you know, 4 months, and it was a very wonderfully made film, and it was not received as a $1 million film at all. You know, the first $1 million film they ever made was Gunga Din, as you remember, and that did very well. But Tom Brown's School Days, costing all that money, was it was a very well-made picture and got wonderful reviews, and nobody came to see it, really.
Well, Life with Father, a lot of people came to see it. Tell us about Elizabeth Taylor, Mike Curtiz, Bill Powell.
I'd already made one film with Elizabeth at MGM called Cynthia, and I gave her first kiss on the screen in Cynthia.
All right.
And now I'm at Warner's to make Life with Father, and a great big long. Life with Father had been a very successful Broadway play for 7 years, and it cost a lot of money to buy the rights to it. Mr. Warner had a lot of money invested in it. And so he hired Irene Dunn and William Powell to play the mother and father, and me to play the Clarence, who really wrote the story about his father and everything, and the other 3 children, and Elizabeth Taylor was the girl. And Mike Curtiz, I have to tell you about Mike. Mike was a Hungarian who very, very rarely ever spoke English. You know, he had this broken American accent, And he had a fiery temper, but he was one of the finest directors you could ever meet, you know. And his temper wasn't meant to be anything at all. It was just a man who was so involved in making motion pictures that he would fly off the handle at the least bit of thing. Now, Elizabeth and I had a kind of almost a childish, a juvenile romantic scene on the balcony of this beautiful house they had on Fifth Avenue, and the family were well-to-do. And it's just the boy and the girl, and she finally comes over and sits on Father's trousers, you know. And Life with Father was a Broadway play, and this movie. And Father, nobody ever got sat on Father's trousers, but they were cut down for me. And so Elizabeth sat on Father's trousers and the whole thing. Anyway, we got this long scene to do. And we're in 3-stripe Technicolor, you know, we're running 3 stripes through one lens, and it's very, very touchy. And even the director couldn't print us a shot until he asked the camera department and everybody else if there weren't any hairs in those 3 apertures. Anyway, we rehearsed the scene, and now we start shooting with Mike Curtiz, who's this very fiery temper, marvelous director. And take 1, take 2, take 3, take 4, 5, 6, and I can see them while working in Mike, you know. Take 7, and finally take 8, and Mike blew his top, and he started to scream. And, you know, Elizabeth is 15 years old, and she's so beautiful, and such a fun gal, and she started to cry. And she ran out the set, and we all had dressing rooms outside the soundstage. And she went into the dressing room and slammed the door, and she's sobbing. And Warner's was treated to one of the most wonderful spectacles you could ever imagine. Here's 6-foot Mike Curtiz, bald, no hair even on his eyebrows, and his fiery temper. And he's walking up and down in front of the dressing room, swearing to the top of Elspeth, you break my don't cry, son of a man, you son of a man, don't cry. All he's trying to do is apologize. Well, that's the way Mike was, you know. And
didn't in fact Mike go after you one day just out of frustration?
Oh yeah, Mike never ate lunch. You know, and he'd go to Rush's and see the Rushes during lunch, and we'd all wander back within the hour after lunch.
The lunch bums.
And he'd be mumbling, "Damn, Octa group, you got to feed your face. You're no good to me for you yawn in my face until you got the damn food corrected, Octa." And one time, there's a ladder on the set, and I got my arm on the ladder, and I'm watching whatever they were lighting on the set, and all of a sudden somebody kicked me right in the rump and lifted me about that, and it hurt. And I turned around and I'm furious, and here's Mike. And all he wanted to do is say, "Kid, I'm sorry, you know I don't make all he wanted to do is apologize." A wonderful director, and I loved him.
Yeah. Now, when did you start moving behind the camera into production and so forth? You need some water?
Well, I was so lucky, believe me. I never realized what was happening to me, you know, at RKO, and then I'm under contract to Paramount and working 63 days a year, and the rest of the time I'm in the studio every day. Every day I'm going to school. When school is over, I'm having lunch in the commissary, and then I'm going to the cutting rooms and the dubbing stages, and I'm sure none of you know what dubbing is, and it's fascinating. It's the last thing we do in a motion picture, and I'm watching these 3 mixers putting together sound for the very first time. You know, we work with two things, sound here and picture there. And in the dubbing rooms is the first time and the only time we put the 2 units together so much so that we can put it in the lab and put the sound right on the picture for the very first and only time we do it. And it's a marvelous, marvelous thing. And I'm learning all these things for free. And everybody's got their job. Nobody was scared like they are today, because there aren't any studios today. They're all empty. You rent everything in the studio. Everything. You rent the cameras, the film, the electricians, the equipment they use. Everything is rented now. The studios are just empty places and empty sound stages that you can make film in. And in those days, it was different. Everybody had a home, and you were loyal to that house. And I'm getting this education not only for free, I'm being paid, and very well, 40 out of 52 weeks a year. And to show you how ridiculous it is, in two years at Warner, at Paramount, I went to the head man, Y. Frank Freeman, a big Southerner. And I finally make an appointment to see the boss, and I go into his office, and he said, "What do you want?" And I said, "I don't want a thing, Mr. Freeman. I'm very happy here. I'm making lots of money and everything, but I only work 63 days a year, and I have a long Broadway career and radio and all that sort of stuff. And I made 10 or 12 features before I came here to you, and I want to be useful to Paramount instead of making 63 days work a year. I want to work." He said, "Are you unhappy here?" I said, No. And he reached into his desk and he pulled out a thing about that far. He said, "I got your contract right here." I don't think it was. He said, "You want me to tear up the contract?" I said, "No, don't do that." He said, "Get out of my office."